Oh, hey! For this time, I've already taken out the ingredients. Bread flour and beer. And what am I making? What does bread flour and beer actually have in common? Well, I'm making my easiest bread recipe ever, which is no-knead bread. Basically, you can substitute water for the beer, but beer is so much more interesting and exciting, don't you think? Actually, it just gives a lot of flavor to the bread. If you don't want to do that, you could try using some juices and stuff, but the acidity might affect the tanginess of the bread itself. But really, this bread takes minutes to put together, and the hardest thing, bad grammar, but never mind, the hardest thing really is the waiting. So you start at about 5 o'clock in the evening. You put it together, wait till you go to bed at about 11, put it in the fridge, and then by the next day at 5 p.m. come home, bake bread, and you basically have fresh, hot bread from the oven to eat with salted butter. I can't think of anything more joyous than that. So, let's go and put together some no-knead bread, shall we?
Hey everyone! I'm not quite sure if you've ever heard of the old cliche, an attitude for gratitude, an attitude of gratitude, apologies, an attitude of gratitude. How often in a day do you express gratitude, and not just saying thank you in an offhand way, but actually having a think about what you're grateful for? I can tell you that even having been mindful for the last few years and trying to practice it more, I wouldn't say I fall short, but I definitely could do with exercising my gratitude muscle more. And it really dragged me out of some of my darkest moments. Even when I was like feeling really, really low, and I started listing out, literally writing out a gratitude list, it helped tremendously with finding my joy, finding my mojo again. It wasn't easy, but it's worthwhile. So for this time for joy, I'm going to keep it extremely short and just say, practice writing a gratitude list and commit to it for 3 weeks. A list of 10 points. Try this, a list of 10 points. You can repeat the gratitudes, but try to phrase it slightly differently. Try to do something like, don't just write, I'm gratitude for the food on my, I'm grateful for the food on my table every single day. Yeah, switch it up a bit. I'm grateful for that omelette, so I'm grateful for that chicken rice. Whatever it is, just try writing something different. No matter how basic you might think it is. Basically, doing a gratitude list exercises something I like to call a gratitude muscle. Most of us definitely don't do it enough. And I'll tell you this, have you ever met someone who is so bitter and so like feeling victimized, like feeling like what they call someone with a lack mentality, someone who lacks? Have you ever met someone like that and thought, wow, they actually have a decent life, but why are they so hard on themselves or on everyone else around them, or just find things to criticize? It's primarily because they haven't exercised the gratitude muscle. I didn't find it very easy, and I must admit, in my 3 weeks, it was hard to keep up. I've tried a challenge where I actually do it for 77 days, and I've restarted at least 5 times. This challenge basically is a challenge which, if you don't do what you've committed to, you basically have to restart. And it's for 77 days. So, let's keep this short. Try doing a gratitude list challenge for 3 weeks, 21 days to be precise. Let's exercise that gratitude muscle, and very soon it'll probably look like Arnie and Conan, or is that too much? Maybe Ryan Gosling these days? Who are we looking at who's like absolutely gorgeous, muscular? Yeah, we want our gratitude muscle to look like Ryan Gosling's body. Or Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill, of course, Henry Cavill's body. When he was in Superman. No one can look like that forever, but that's another topic entirely. So, I am very grateful to have Henry Cavill in our lives and to have watched him as Superman. I wish he could have continued, but I wish Mr. Cavill every success in the future. Hey, so no-knead bread. This bread isn't new, but it's damned easy and simple too. A few ingredients available at most supermarkets. Measure out the wet, measure out the dry, mix it together, and before you can say nasi lemak, it's done. Nothing is more joyous than freshly baked bread. I've tried a lot of recipes, and this recipe is pretty much a mix of that experience. Shout out to my other half, who I developed this recipe for. He's stuck somewhere where it's hard to find artisanal breads, and he needed something that would be easy to make and wholesome. See what I did there? So he now makes this on a regular basis, except that I think he uses water. You can use beer as well. Anyway, what you saw me do was really dumping in all the dry ingredients and the wholemeal flour. If in doubt, I used a ratio of 30% wholemeal flour to strong white high protein of bread flour. And then I just measured out the yeast, which you mix together with the flour first, and then the salt. You don't want to kill the yeast with the salt by mixing it on top of each other. Next, just measure out the wet ingredients like I'm doing. I added some oil because I like a little bit of a softer bread, and most Malaysians do too. If you don't, keep it out. Just make sure you top up that amount of oil with a liquid too. Now all you do is mix the water into the flour, the liquid portion into the flour, and give these dry ingredients a good stir. It shouldn't take you more than 2 minutes, literally. Then it'll come together as that scraggly, rough lump. A nice scraggly rough lump. Say that fast 5 times. So this will take all of 2 minutes. Cover with plastic wrap, and this damn plastic wrap wouldn't cooperate, as Murphy's Law would have it during filming. So just wrap it, leave it for 6 hours, and you're done. It's as easy as that. Now, this next step, well, you could actually shape and bake it now, but this next step gives you max flavor. Transfer the bowl with the dough after 6 hours into the fridge. Anything from 12 to 36 hours is fine. The longer it is, the more flavor will develop, cause the yeast continues to work slowly, making all sorts of yummy yeasty flavors. Next step is shape. As you can see, I've cut out some parchment paper, and this technique basically helps to minimize the pain of that sticky dough. I've also sieved on some flour, not thickly, but enough to cover the parchment, so you don't see the parchment. Now with the dough, it almost smells like flowers at this point, like flowers as in floral arrangements. Dust your dough scraper and scrape it onto the flour. Try and aim for the center. As you can see, the dough actually comes off in a nice lump. It doesn't even stick to the bowl. Flour your hands well, and then flour the top of the dough as well. At this point, you want to just have a bit of a boogie, I guess, and stretch. You don't want to do this. This you do not want to do. You do not want to tear the dough. Just stretch it 4 times, north, south, east, west. Okay? North, south, east, west is best. Now, you want to stretch it until that point where it's about to tear. And then, repeat. Flip it over and repeat. That's your kneading. That's your stretching. This basically aligns the gluten strands so you get nice and strong gluten. See, it's already resisting my pull. So, just dust it with the rest of the flour and shape it like this. Use the edge of your hands and cut into the bottom of the boule. A boule is basically a French word for a squashed ball. I didn't know this until I was today years old. Tip over the flour back into the sieve. You'll use that for the top of the boule. Put it back onto the parchment. Cover with a piece of cloth so it doesn't dry out. Turn on your oven to 230 degrees Celsius at least. Some ovens max out at 250. Mine does, but if you don't, it's fine. 230 is fine. Let's talk about bowls and pots, baby. So this is an old curry pot. It's got a little bit of a crack in it, so that's why I changed it to, I can use this for my bread. I've tried this before, it works really well, and I just use a cast iron skillet as its cover. And it heats up really well, it retains heat really well. Of course, then we've got the Lodge cast iron with a pot underneath, just plonks in here, and both retain heat really well as well. Stainless steel, down my list of favorites, but at the end of the day, if you don't have anything else, this works too, as long as it's got a lid. Now, because this is big, okay, you'll get a flatter bread. Okay, Dutch oven, traditional, very deep, quite large as well, so you will get a flatter bread, but works really well. I've got to try and get rid of this black stuff. Okay, and this is my mom's old crock pot. The pot itself has stopped working, but this insert looks really good. So I've never tried it before, but I'm gonna try it. I think it's a oven-proof lid. We will find out. And we'll try it in this today. Put your pot in the oven to preheat. This is important. You need a very, very hot pot, as opposed to Chinese hot pot. Lift up the cloth. This, you'll see the dough puffed up and gorgeous looking. Dust it with flour. You can use rice flour here too, and that will leave your covered bits white. Plain flour tends to brown because of the protein in it. Anyway, score it. That's important. Score the boule, as that helps with oven spring and the rise of the bread. Go on, take out the pot, close the oven door. You don't want it cooling down quickly, so close that oven door. Grab the 4 corners of your parchment and quickly transfer it over to your pot. Don't forget to put on your oven mitts again before you lift that lid and put it back on to cover. I've done this once before and been very sorry. Put the pot back in the oven quickly as possible. And there you have it. 35 minutes later, through the magic of television, it's done. You lift off that lid, and it should be a sort of a pale golden. Put it back in for another 10 to 15 minutes, or until it's as brown as you want it to be. Don't worry if the parchment starts browning. Quickly lift it out, and you have your no-knead bread. Doesn't that look amazing? Listen to the scratch in a bit. Slice after 30 minutes, so wait for a bit for it to cool down before you slice. It's hard to cut when it's too hot. There's your no-knead bread. It was as easy as that. Just listen. Salted butter. Be generous. I was being good today, so I didn't put too much, but remember this. Butter is actually better for you than that processed spread stuff. Sprinkle on a little salt. And it's time for tasting. Cheers. Cheers. Who needs to buy bread?
Yeah.
That's a beer. Oh. Water. We used water.
Yes. No. I mean, you can use beer if you want to, but we use You can use water. Hello.
Toffee, my girl. Sorry, darling, you can't have this. This has got yeast in it. But your face is just too precious. All right. All right.
Make this bread. Yeah, make the bread. That's all.
Make the bread.
Make the bread.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Toffee thanks you too. Have a great week ahead.
It's so soft.
Right?
It's really soft.
If you keep out the oil, it'll just be chewier.